Welcome back to Access All Areas. You join us for our season finale, our episode 6 of our 2023 Lakeland 50-100 experience. And we are mega chuffed, aren't we, John, to be joined by Terry Gilpin and Marc Laithwaite, race directors. All things epic that go on last weekend is down to these guys. How are we doing, fellas?
We're just recovering.
Fair comment. Just recovering.
Yeah, I'm not recovering, you see, because Terry's kind of like chief of staff. He gets to go for a week's holiday, and I'm unpacking vans.
Okay, so Terry's had a bit of downtime. Marc, its cadence is still high.
Yeah. Busy couple of weeks just sorting all the stuff out after the event. But it's all good. It's all good.
And the event last weekend went past in a blur for John and I, certainly, and I can imagine that was similar for you, a bit of a haze of euphoric activity. But how, looking back on it, how's it all panned out from your perspective? Terry?
It was a busy weekend, wasn't it? But when you look back on it, it's gone past in a flash, really. Highs and lows, mostly highs, and we just feel very tired at the end of it all. But a week later, it's all gone. We're all recovered.
Well, you are.
Well, I am. Marc isn't, but I am. Yeah.
Marc, does that reflect your feelings?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of how it went, I think it probably went as well as we could have expected it to from our perspective. I always say this is very, very hard. We're not in a position where you can enjoy the weekend, because because there's always something happening, or whether it's a briefing or kids race or the 100 race, and then obviously it's coordinating that. So even just something simple as 100 start, have you got all the marshals there? Is the road closure staff in place? So you're basically it's constant firefighting all the way through to the presentation, and then once the last runner's in and everyone's safe, it's that's the only time you can really enjoy it. But it's but then it's not our weekend to enjoy, is it? It's the weekend's there for the runners to enjoy, not for us. It's our job, really. But it's so yeah. Now's the time we can sit back and just chill a little bit and look back on it and appreciate it.
And see, just on that, I think part of the role that we were involved with was giving you that footage that you can go back and enjoy and reflect on, because it's sort of stuff we did was on Facebook. But I just want to, when we arrived last Friday, 1:30 in the afternoon, Stephen, something like that, I think we arrived on site, and we said, has anybody seen Marc? He's over there. We were over there, and then we went over there, and over there. So you were everywhere. And then we actually found you, thanks to Nikki Nappet. It was the lady that got us into that hub.
Take us to your leader.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then in that hub, which do you think it was the art room in the school, or it was a room in the school anyway? And we came in there, and there's all this furore, or just like carnival thing happening outside, and we come in there, and it's just a state of calm. I think there was only 3 or 4 people in that room.
Yeah.
And we'd obviously arrived at your setup. It's that marshals arriving 8 o'clock-ish in the morning, isn't it? So a lot of stuff's happened prior to that. But there's obviously still a lot of organising, and there's a lot of demands coming at you from all over the place. Does that happen until the last runner's in? Are there questions coming at you all the time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The comms room remained an oasis of calm, really, all the way through, didn't it, Marc?
Yeah, and it is good. It is good. I mean, I think the thing is, it's like with any organisation, you'll have questions, like, for example, can I swap my t-shirt size? And then you'll have questions which might be something major related to whether the GPS trackers are functioning correctly. And we can't be answering questions on whether you've got the right t-shirt size. So we have a lot of volunteers, and then we have some of the volunteers that have been with us for a long, long time. We have them as like a middle management, if you like, and they manage all the volunteers. And then we've got another team sat above that, so who can just deal with the major stuff, and then you're not getting harassed about, such and such a body's not got enough flapjack. So
Sorry about that
that's
one.
fine, but we've got someone on the fell missing. We didn't have anybody on the fell missing, but you get my point.
Yeah.
So it's just that. So so that's why we have that kind of central comms room, and where you can just get away from people and try and keep it secret where it is, so you're not constantly getting people coming in just for a chat. And you can just manage the big things that are really important.
Yeah, so it wasn't the art room; it was the music room. Sorry.
No, I think it was the art room actually.
No.
It was the French. It was the
French room, the language room.
Yeah.
There's posters on the wall.
I
like Terry's description. An oasis of calm is what it felt like when we came in, and it was the first time we actually got our eyes on the buckle, which was fantastic, man. Mark was sitting there with the buckle, and I think we both went, "Oh, that's a big one." So
it definitely was larger in the flesh than it was in the pictures.
Not often that's said, to be honest. So,
yeah.
Mark, can I ask? You mentioned about checkpoints, and we had a chat. I think it was on the Friday night just before we headed off to our tents. You were talking about there being a new virtual checkpoint in the 100 because of signals and making sure everybody was safe. How did that pan out? We spoke about it being set up, but how did that pan out?
Black Sail.
Oh, we're talking about Black Sail, yeah.
Yeah,
it was fine. It was fine. I mean, I think we're always just trying to look at little ways of kind of managing. And I mean, the thing is with the event, the biggest thing is safety. Mm-hmm. So, Lakeland is known for all its kind of like quirky madness and stuff like that, and the presentation and people getting married on stage and all of that kind of stuff. But ultimately, you've got 2,000 people out on the mountain throughout the night. You need to know where they all are. If anybody's in trouble, you need to ensure they've got medical provision. You've got to get clear communication for all of that. So that structure is far more important than line dancing on stage. It's not. So and that's the kind of base of the event really, is having all of that infrastructure in place. Because if it doesn't, then all the hoorah is nonsense. It doesn't work unless you've got a solid structure in place. So for the 100 runners, we always have a bit of a black spot between Wasdale and Buttermere, and the GPS trackers don't update. So if someone has an accident on Black Sail Pass, for example, then it may potentially not be able to get any information until they get to Buttermere. So in between Black Sail and Scarth Gap, there is a little Black Sail youth hostel. So we booked out the youth hostel and took a satellite dish up there and set up a little RFID reader. So if people went past, and it wasn't a checkpoint as such, but what it meant is everybody who went past the Black Sail hut was recorded as going past. So it filled that dark spot between Wasdale and Buttermere.
Yep.
So we knew at least if someone were to go missing or there was a call out, we would know that they either have or haven't gone past Black Sail, which is halfway between Wasdale and Buttermere. So
it narrows it down, doesn't it?
Yeah, and we've got a team of marshals and a couple of medics, and they just basically have to walk into that checkpoint because you can only access it by foot. Walk a couple of miles in, carrying the sat dish and set it up there, and so it's just a little added security really, because the only place in the race we ever have problems is Wasdale to Buttermere and then Howtown to Mardale. That's where generally the issues are. If someone's going to injure themselves, they'll injure themselves going down to Haweswater, which I think 2 people did this year. It was a dislocated shoulder and a broken wrist.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's always going down to Mardale. They slip because they're tired and they slip on the way down.
Yeah, it's always the same place. Every year it's the same place, isn't it, Mark?
Yeah.
Hot spots.
Sorry?
Slippy spots.
Hot spots for incidents. No,
slippy spots.
Yeah.
If it's 16, that was 16th year, including the one virtual.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you'll get to know where things happen, I take it, and then putting that risk mitigation in place to try and help the safety of runners, that duty of care, I suppose, the and priority.
It's getting in to help them as well. When you look at the course, if you know the lakes well, accessing certain areas. So once they go over to Mardale and then they're on the way over to Kentmere, that's a really hard place to get to. So once they get to Kentmere, they're pretty much on that main road. There's the 590 that comes from the M6 and goes down to Windermere. If you think once they're over to Kentmere, they're almost on that 590, and then they follow it to Ambleside, and then they follow it to Chapel Stile. So that corridor is very easy to access. And so is that northern corridor, the A66, which goes from Penrith down to, you've got Buttermere, Braithwaite, Blencathra, Dockeray, Dalemain. They're all just either side of the A66.
Mm-hmm.
But those two, that western and eastern sections, are very, very difficult to get people to as well and get people out of. So you kind of like, for me, you know, when we're coming into Saturday evening, Sunday night, once everybody's over to Kentmere, you can breathe a sigh of relief, really, because they're on the side, you know, they're only just by Windermere on the main road to some extent. So it's easy to get to them if we need to get to them.
You take your first sort of breath out when they've successfully traversed to that point in the course. What, see on that, and the weather, now you spoke at the presentation a wee bit about the weather. It was quite a challenging year weather-wise. We didn't really, I suppose, see that down in Coniston and Ambleside, which is kind of where our footprint was mainly. But up in the tops, and especially on the Friday night, I think it was, a bit of a storm came in. And is that something that was, it's hard to forecast the weather in that part of the world, I know, but was that expected?
I think the 100 runners had a really bad time from Buttermere to Braithwaite. I think the rain started just after Wasdale and then carried on all the way through to Braithwaite. And I think if you look at the video, you can see that it got pretty intense, really, working across there. And some people had a really rough time.
Yeah, well, I was struggling to sleep in my tent. So, yeah, I can only appreciate what it was like actually being out there.
Good lad.
Being out there grafting away. I don't know, that on night one of potentially a two nighttime ultra, and you're getting battered and soaked through, and you're thinking, where the hell is Dalmain?
Yeah.
And then you come to Dalmain, and it was beautiful sunshine. It was like a beautiful summer's day, you know, and all the 50 runners, the support crews and the 50 runners that are arriving off the buses, and it's like, oh, what a lovely day. And you've got the 100 runners coming through who've suffered a night of misery, or part of it being misery. Yeah. You know, but what I've got to say is that race community, it doesn't have to show up big time at Dalmain. You know, everybody, all the 100 runners are being cheered through, and a few were in a state of disrepair, but the support teams were helping them, encouraging them on. Take a wee bit. If you want to drop out, just take a wee minute and think about it. You know, there was a lot of that going on. And it was lovely. And then I've said to Stephen, you two didn't have ramp up the start of the 50 as well. You know, there's that electric in the air, and I think the song we spoke about was AC/DC's Thunderstruck. The whole field's going like caged tiger in that pen, just waiting to go, you know. Yeah. What does it feel like though for you guys at that part of the race, or sorry, not the race, of the weekend? What does it feel like? Yeah,
it's an exciting start, isn't it, at Dalmain? Lots and lots of supporters there that have all turned up to see runners. You know, the place is absolutely packed, isn't it? And it's bouncing. Yeah, it's really good. There were a record number as well started the 50 this year. We've never had as many.
How many was it?
1361. And I've just got the numbers here actually. 616 started the 100. 1361 did the 50. So we nearly hit 2,000 runners. 1,987 runners in total.
394 in the kids run.
Well above 2,000. Yeah. Yes.
With 400 medals ordered.
Yeah.
And no DNA. No DNA.
Too close, that.
Yeah, that was twitchy butt time, I can imagine. Yeah. So almost so a record number of starters in both the 50 and 100.
Yeah, that's right. Well above in the 100. Yeah, probably 80 more than we've ever had before. Okay. And a record number of finishes as well.
That's where I was going with that, and percentages, and you were reeling off all the stats, Mark, last weekend, both at the briefing and at the presentation. Although you were a bit sceptical about one of the stats being accurate. Is that now, has your data analyst team been on that? Is everything hunky dory?
Yeah, let's move on.
Okay. I think one thing that John and I got a bit of insight to over the weekend in our sort of roles as roving reporters, and if you spoke to us or we spoke to you or whatever over the weekend, thank you, was the just the scale of the operation behind the scenes, having been there for the last couple of years to take part as runners, it was that appreciation of what the mammoth logistics tasks that's going on behind the scenes, and none more so when we went into the sort of stores tent and John's eyes lit up at bags of jelly babies and stuff. I could see him kind of getting
sacks of jelly babies.
Sacks of jelly babies. And it gave you that appreciation of all the stuff that's going out to checkpoints and getting set up. The checkpoints are absolutely marvellous refuges. Do you know what? Okay, if you're at the sharp end, you're running through them. But for people who are, you know, there to get to the finish line, the checkpoints, is there some, I don't know if you want to just say a bit about your checkpoint staff and the people who make these places such a unique place?
Yeah, I mean, for the checkpoints, there's all sorts of we had all sorts of issues really in the early years, because when we only had a handful of people, checkpoints were like serving something out the boot of someone's car. My dad drove his Nissan Micra to Blencathra, parked up in the car park, and had some jam butties in the back of his car, and so it was that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at it, if you realise you probably wouldn't have checkpoints where they are now if we'd anticipated to have these numbers. So Mardale Head is probably the most ridiculous place to put a checkpoint, because you've got to get stuff in there, you know. So it involves, and where there isn't a village hall or there isn't a building, so we've got a company who go around and put marquees up. So the marquee at Dalemain, the marquee at Chapel Style. So you've got a company who's got to go around and put the marquee up, and then they've got to put tables and chairs in there as well. And then we've got the guy who goes around and drops all the portable toilets at every single checkpoint. So every checkpoint on the course, he's got to drive the full 105 miles and deliver portable toilets to all of them, and rubbish, and then collect the rubbish afterwards and take it all away. So there's all of that. And then you've got the checkpoint managers and the checkpoint staff who come in and deliver it. So it's more than the checkpoint staff. Just getting the checkpoints there initially is a huge challenge, so Mardale Head, for example, the company have to drop. We've got the marquee there. They have to take 3,000 litre Bowsers of water there. They have to take portable toilets there, and they take the bins there, and they have to take all of that away afterwards. So you've got to do that for 14 checkpoints, because even checkpoints like Kentmere or village halls will try and put portable toilets there, so the toilets don't get smashed inside. And Kentmere has a water tank in the roof which runs out of water. So we have to put a 3,000 litre Bowser there. So they're just driving around, dropping all this stuff off. And then our checkpoint teams, I mean, some of them have been there since year one, like Tony and Giselle, who go to Braithwaite. Some of them more recent. And then we got, you've got the people like the Wasdale Strollers and the Spartans and everybody else who just come every year and treat it like a big club weekend.
Yeah.
And they kind of own that checkpoint, which we're very lucky to do. And so we give them a list of kit, and we have all the food for them. And then they turn up, and they'll turn up en masse in their cars or a van or whatever they've hired, load all that stuff in and drive to their checkpoint. And all the essentials, like the tables and the chairs and the water and the toilets and everything, should already be there. And then, and we give them a bit of money as well to say, well, this is what you're getting, but if you want to take something else, you've got 500 quid or whatever to spend on whatever food you want to buy. So this is where we get these situations where people are going, why was there no watermelon at this checkpoint when there was last year? And I'm thinking, I didn't even know there was watermelon at this, to be honest. No idea. And that's because the marshals have bought that with their budget and brought it themselves, So, yeah.
And I think, sorry, go for it, John. No, you go for it.
I was going to say about Mardale Head. I've been there twice now. I don't recall ever seeing a road. Is there a road in there you can drive into?
There's one road in and same road out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think they airlift the stuff in, John?
I was thinking maybe a helicopter or something going in there, because it's
a seaplane.
Okay. No, but you know what? It's a very good insight, and I was going to ask about marquees as well, because it's something that I hadn't really thought about until last Saturday. Steve and I went across to Ambleside, and we seen the structure there that was outside. But you think about how many checkpoints there are. And this is the things. All I'm trying to do here is to give the runners and the support teams and families an appreciation of the size and the scale of the operation that goes on to provide. People rave about checkpoints, but they don't just happen. There's a lot of things to do even before the checkpoint staff get there. So I'm glad you mentioned, Mark, about there's a team employed to go and put these structures in place, but also to disassemble them later on as well. It doesn't just happen.
It's
You know?
leaving no trace behind you, and
Exactly.
all the
Yeah, I mean, that's the tricky thing. Obviously we've talked many times about how fragile it is as well. So,
Mhm.
if we're having a checkpoint at a village hall and it's left, and there's some damage, or it's left in a mess, or there's some litter or something which isn't collected, then it obviously comes back on us. We just have to make sure. And the checkpoint teams, they've been there 24 hours or something. You can't say, make sure it's spotless, because they've been they're just zombified because they've been there for 24 hours. So in a lot of the places, we will make sure, we'll speak to them and book a cleaner in for the Monday or whatever it may be. But just making sure none of that goes by. Because your worst case scenario is something's left in a mess, or there's some rubbish left there and you don't know about it, and you leave it there 3 weeks until the person who owns that checkpoint finally contacts you in a rage because you haven't collected. So we just have to chase them all up on the Monday. Emails start going out. That's what Joe does, to be honest. Monday morning, back the next day, emails out to every single checkpoint. If there's anything you need to do, any damage, any mess or anything, we'll pay for it all. Just make sure that everything's absolutely fine, so we can keep that relationship for next year.
Yeah, don't want to jeopardise it in the slightest. And I think that's been a great wee insight into just the logistics and infrastructure that sits behind all this. And you said it, fun and all the nonsense that goes on with it, which makes the weekend. But without all that and the volunteers, etc., delivering it, and everybody knowing their role, everybody having a checklist or whatever it may be, or whatnot, is it's pretty sensational, and the way it's pulled off. So congratulations to everybody involved.
Yeah, we actually Steve and I met a few guys and people in Coniston, in the village itself, that on Saturday, and for some, I suppose it happens every year, people arrive in Coniston, they've no idea what's going on. All these folk this year, folk with yellow t-shirts and sheriff badges. What's going on? And then eventually, people like Andy Berry come through. Everybody starts cheering. What's going on? Or there's this event, and people are absolutely flummoxed and bamboozled that human beings would pay to run 100 miles and then 50 miles throughout the Lake District. And I love the fact that, because for Stephen and I, and you guys as well, it's part of our world. It's what people do in the summertime. But there are people out there that non-runners have no idea. But I think we encouraged a few people to be looking at that Ballot opening in September and thinking, I can do that. You've got a year. You've got a year to prep. Yeah. But where I'm trying to go with that is, Coniston just continues as normal, doesn't it? There's people coming to visit Coniston, but Coniston, what's the relationship like between Coniston and the race? Because it seems to really embrace it for me. Is that true? Is that what happens?
Yeah. Mostly,
yeah.
Yeah.
Is that for you, Terry, or for me?
It's for you, Mark.
I'm just trying to put no. I mean, I think if you've got a race in a village like that, there's always going to be someone that's going to be upset.
Yeah.
But
we've got a really good relationship. We've got a really good relationship with the parish council, haven't we?
Yeah. And it's 16 years now as well, and I think it's very different if it's 1 or 2, 3 years. But when it's been 16 years, I think people just kind of get used to it. And we have got a really good relationship, but you'll always upset one person or something like that. And you can understand it as well. If you've got a young child and people are ringing cowbells at 2 o'clock in the morning to keeping your child awake, you kind of understand it, can't you? So I completely understand it. But I would say on the whole, really, very much on the whole, we've got a really good relationship with the people in Coniston now, and with Coniston Parish Council. So
I can imagine how much work and endeavour went into fostering those relationships. To get where you are now.
Yeah. And I think that's it. It has grown over the 16 years, and I think perhaps I can imagine, like, if kind of like new companies coming in or trying to organise an event, it's very difficult. But you've just got to speak to people, haven't you? I mean, that's the thing. It's just about building relationships. And if you're coming in with an almighty, do you know who we are kind of thing, and just ignoring people, then you don't expect to be accepted. And if you work with them and see what you can do to help them and everything else, and you're friendly with people and just give people time, and they're okay. I think that's half the problem, isn't it? Sometimes that people just feel that they're not being listened to, or actually doing anything to solve any problems.
Well, it's got to be on both parts as well. I mean, we do put back into Coniston as well, don't we? We've got a Coniston Community Fund, and we provide funding for local groups. It all goes into the parish council, and then they decide how to distribute it. So it's good to put things back in there as well.
Yeah.
That's a big part that comes across during the presentation ceremony as well, about what's happening, about where their fees go to, their entrance fees, and what they're doing. Can we go back? It's something that you touched on, Mark, and I just realised this is the first year of 3 years in a row visiting Coniston that I've actually witnessed the 1 mile race. You mentioned it earlier on. What a buzz there is at that, man. That's quite phenomenal, isn't it? Do you want to say a wee bit about that for people that maybe haven't experienced it?
Yeah. So we used to do it down Lake Road, down to the Bluebird Cafe and back. But we just realised it's just, it's causing too much inconvenience because we're blocking the road for 20 minutes while the kids run down and back. So that's why we moved it onto the field, again, to kind of reduce the amount of traffic problems. Because that's one of the, again, we talked about if you planned for 2,500, if you're planning an event now for 2,500 people, you wouldn't choose Coniston. It's as simple as that, You're driving down a dead end road to try and get onto a field to camp. So towns like Keswick, for example, are much better geared up to it. A66, big main road all the way down there. Plenty of places where you can get a lot of people in and out. The infrastructure. So there are much simpler places where you could organise the event from. And that said, it's always been Coniston. So as long as they'll have us at Coniston, I'd always wanted to be Coniston because that's part of the history of the event. So we could double the numbers if we move it, but it's not what it's about, is it? It wouldn't be the event it is if we decided to move it just so we could double the numbers. So that's always going to be tricky, and Lake Road is always a hot spot and people getting down there because there's the gondola, the National Trust gondola and the water sports centre down there and all of that. So it's just keeping that road clear. So that's I'm going off a tangent here, but that's why we don't hold the kids race on the road anymore, and we do a lap of the field. But we started off, and the idea was we just started off in, I think it was the second or third year, we put a little fun race on for the kids, and then it's grown and grown and grown, and the whole Fox thing, and the kids get a medal, and it's we used to have dance routines and all sorts of things, and that kind of grew. I mean, so unfortunately, I can't be much involved with the Lakeland one because there's too much of the stuff going on now. But it is brilliant, and I think that's part of it, isn't it? We talk about why is there such a good atmosphere, and one of the reasons why is because of the family aspect. So if people didn't bring their partners, husbands, wives, children's, mothers, fathers, whatever, then there wouldn't be the same atmosphere, would there? So that's one element of it, is the family thing, and the kids race is now become quite notorious, really, as part of the weekend. I think so many kids taking part.
Mark said that he wasn't having time to get involved in it. I've got a photo of you in an inflatable horse suit in full character at the start of the kids race. It looked like you were getting involved at that point, albeit maybe for no as long as you wanted to be, and stuff. And is it still, sorry, would it be the case then that you've now seen people grow up doing the Lakeland one who are now in the 50?
Yeah. Well, it was Laura, wasn't it? Laura Stevenson. That's right. It is Laura Stevenson. Yeah. Yeah, it was Laura Stevenson, wasn't it? So we've seen kids who've done the Lakeland one now taking part in the event. And I said we've since 16 years, and I mean, I think I said this in the briefing, and to it was the 50 or 100 briefing, was talking about how you've seen kids grow up over that 16-year period, the same people coming back. But and I know I'm kind of talking to Terry here, but in stores, the Easterns who were in stores, who've been coming every year, and their kids, it's kind of strange. You walk in, and because you don't see them, you see in the same families, but only on an annual basis.
Yeah.
So every year you walk in and go, oh my God, And I actually, for a split second, didn't recognise the Easton's children, because they're almost grown up now. It's
adults.
Yeah. So
the eldest was a baby in arms, if I remember rightly, the first time we met them.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Brilliant.
So you see that year after year, but but for the kids race, we had Laura Stevenson last year. And she'd done the Lakeland one, because we knew this would happen at some point. Kids will do the Lakeland one, and then they'll go and do the Lakeland 50. And then last year we had Laura Stevenson, who at 21 did the Lakeland 100. she'd done the 50 the year before, and 4 years before that had done the Lakeland 1. So she was last year she was our Triple Crown winner, the first ever person to achieve the Triple Crown of being a kid doing the Lakeland 1, then doing the Lakeland 50, and then finishing the Lakeland 100 at 21 years of age.
That's phenomenal, isn't it?
Yeah. She was broken at the end, I can remember. She struggled afterwards to recover, to be honest. She was in bits. But yeah, it's amazing really to think about that, to have someone who's done at 21 years of age, has gone from the 1 to the 50 to the 100.
Yeah. And I think would be amiss not to speak about the excitement at the sharp end of the races at the weekend in terms of the finishes to the 100s and 50, particularly in the men's category. Both races pretty much decided in the last 1% of the routes. And I know that you were at the finish line for Andy Berry coming over. I got a wee chance to speak to Andy after it. He didn't realise he'd won when he crossed the line.
Yeah.
Or he was in doubt. He wasn't sure. I don't know if that was a little bit of haze and fog, brain fog. I'm trying to say. Just we've been on the go for 105 miles. But in the same over in the men's race, Neil McNichol, who's been quite a perpetual podiumer across a number of years now, taking the 50 in a sprint for the line almost.
Yeah, that was bonkers.
And seeing that unfold and keeping up with the tracker, like, well, we're expecting so and so to come down at somebody else. Has that been the closest sort of finishes, or is that something that's happened before, quite as exciting at the sharp end?
We've had some, we have had some close finishes, haven't we?
Yeah.
Past, but I don't think ever across the 50 and 100, because it was like, am I right, in the 50, a couple of people dropped out before the last checkpoint or something? Because I remember, I think there was 2 or 3 people who were 20 minutes ahead or something. Mm-hmm. And between Chapel Style and Tilberthwaite, I think 2 of them pulled out. So suddenly the person that was in 5th, like 20 minutes behind, or 6th, 20 minutes behind, was suddenly like 4th and 2 or 3 minutes behind the leader. So it was just massive shift in the last kind of 8 miles. But then you say then in the 100 it was settled just on the track down from the copper mines, wasn't it?
Copper mines, yeah.
Was it Jareth who was leading?
Yeah.
And then I think Andy was saying that he basically just bonked, and he literally had to stop and get some water or something off some walkers who were passing by.
Yeah.
And again, we're looking at the trackers and thinking the tracker's not updating. The tracker was still because he was just stood there or sat there and not moving because he'd blown. Yeah. And it was all inside the last mile. They
both went out at a hell of a pace as well, didn't they?
Yeah.
They started at a tremendous pace, and I just presumed that they would just burn out.
Yeah.
But they just carried on. Yeah.
Maybe had their eye on that Matt Derbyshire course record at that point, because I think they were on course first half to match it.
Very wet for course record though, isn't it? It was absolutely bone dry. It was like road running when Marc set that record.
Yeah.
So I think I don't think those conditions were ever going to be favourable to breaking records.
Yeah, but Andy ended up with the 3rd fastest time, I think, on record. So just a smidge over 20 hours. And pretty astonishing finishes. And you're right that I think when we spoke to Andy, he did a 420 kilometre down that final descent to try and rein in Jarlath. So with 104 miles in your legs, that was pretty awe-inspiring stuff. And over in the female race, sorry Mark, you coming in?
Just going to say, Mark Derbyshire emailed me on Monday and said, can I get an entry for next year? FOMO, just saying.
Did you get my email yet?
Now you've been messing around with them other stupid races, you can come back.
He's maybe got a 19-hour itch to scratch.
Yeah.
That's exciting. And over in the female races, Sabrina, who's obviously an icon of the sport, came over the line looking irritatingly fresh. But she did say that she'd had quite a tough time out there.
Yeah. I didn't speak to her, to be honest, but I mean, I think with Sabrina's, once she's in the lead, the chances of actually getting past her are pretty slim, because if anything, she's not going to go slower, is she? You know, so she'll just keep going and going, won't she? So once I saw she was in the lead, I presume that was that really, because so the chances of her slowing down are pretty slim, aren't they?
Yeah,
So,
and yeah, it was an honour to get to speak to her. Certainly, a wee bit starstruck at that one myself.
I did see her at the finish, and I remember that she was pretty spaced out at the finish, wasn't she?
Mm-hmm.
They had to get her some food. Yeah,
a wee moment to compose herself.
Yeah.
And then over in the 50 for the girls, it was a title retained by Katie.
Yeah.
Who slipped right into mum mode almost the second she crossed the finish line, which was super impressive.
Yeah. She said to me, because I was chatting to her before, and I said something to her about just joking about records and stuff, and she said, no, I'm not training much now. She said, I've obviously got a child and all that kind of stuff, so I'm not thinking of anything like that. And you just think, whatever.
8 hours 20 and a little bit of change.
Service resumed.
Yeah.
What was lovely though with Katie was Katie came and we were sitting at the side of the stage, and Katie came and sat on the stage, but her parents were there as well, and their child was there, and it was just, as you spoke about the family thing, it was brilliant. Just they were all sharing that moment together. It was lovely, it was really nice.
Away, isn't he? He was away. He's away. I can't remember where he is. He's like, was he in South America or something? But I know he was away, so that's why parents were there to baby.
But it was nice. We were just sitting at the side.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, just there, she's just won that race, and she's just sitting there with her kid. It was just brilliant. At Stephen stage, she had never even had the chance, because children don't think about, my mum's just done 50 miles really quick. I'll give her 5 minutes. It's a case of, let's go. It's party time, So it was just lovely to witness that,
And that's nice. It's not as if it's a professional sport, is it? So I think that's the nice thing about ultra running in general. It's not as if people aren't walking around with entourages, are they? They'll just sit down at the same table and have a beer with you and have a chat with you and talk to anyone.
I'll tell you what was a lovely moment. We were sitting as well, and Andy Berry came through from the winners or the finisher side of the marquee into the sort of bar area, and this round of applause just started rippling around, in recognition of what he'd done. But Andy, being Andy, he was just very humble about it all, and just think he just sat. Then he spoke with us and he said what did he have, Stephen? A deconstructed burger was his post-race pleasure.
Yeah, he did. He had a deconstructed burger. So basically, he didn't know what he wanted, so they made all the components of a burger in different boxes for him, and he just kind of treated it like a sort of burger tapas, I think. That's what I was thinking in my head. But yeah, and also, okay, that's the finishers are in first places, but there's still 1,900 and something people out on the course, and that unique finish line that you've got there, guys, is just something else. I think John and I, it's hard to describe without actually witnessing the finish line and the process, and then that celebration of everybody coming across the line. Because of course that person who finished during the presentation and came into the presentation with a sensory overload is just as celebrated as Marc and Sabrina are as well, and that I don't know, it's hard to describe, John, just the uniqueness of that atmosphere in the marquee, and it's an onslaught. It doesn't die down, and I don't know what you give to the volunteers. I don't know if there's a magic concoction in that sanctuary that you're kind of pumping into their veins, but everybody's on board, and that I'll have taken a lot. That sort of culture that sits around the race is so evident.
Yeah.
It never fades. It never fades from start to finish.
Yeah.
The volunteers. I'm not sure if you take it in sort of wee shifts to be up, but everybody's up, and every single, as you say, Stephen, every single finisher gets the same energy all the way through from dusk till dawn, and that's exactly what happens, and it's brilliant.
There is a rota for people coming on and off and what duties you've got, but there you're right. I think they all want that job. They all want that job of shouting people into the marquee.
Yeah.
Oh, no wonder.
Yeah.
I witnessed, I'm not sure time, 8, 9 a.m. Sunday. There was a lady, she brought in 3 people at the same time. And the final one she announced, you could tell she was getting a bit emotional. And then she sort of just went, "That's my hubby." So it was her husband that she was announcing in. I don't even know if she ever got past his name, because all the emotion of the crowd just went, "Yeah," you know. And that's what it's like. That's the moment, you know. And you can see people overcome with emotion, because for a lot of people, this is the realization of a dream. You know, that that at one time they thought they weren't possible. They couldn't do this, and to then do it, and to then get all that cheering and sharing that moment, it's just really special. And we've said this, I don't know how many times this week, Stephen. It's a real privilege that we've had to be there and to witness it, you know. And yeah, it's brilliant. So big thank you to you guys and the volunteers that make that happen for people, because it is really special.
Yeah, unforgettable. And not to have the pressure of actually running as well on top of that, you know, the run anxiety of being able to actually sleep on the Friday night, maybe helped along by some liquid refreshment, was an absolute treat. Testify to that. So is there anything else that we want to touch on when people listening, when's entries opening?
I'll let you do the honours, Terry.
It's September the 1st. September the 1st at 9 o'clock.
Okay, and they open for the month of September. What's the window?
48 hours.
Oh, I'm glad I asked that. Then. So we've got 2 days to get your entry in, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Entries close at 9 AM on the 3rd of September.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, that's
it's a ballot rather than entries.
Yes.
It's a
Throw your
ballot.
hat
so
in
you
the
can
ring.
put your name in. Yeah.
I think there is, it's fair to say the longer you leave the ballot open, because when we run the ballot, and we ran the ballot last year, and we probably took twice as many people in the ballot as places in the race. And then we send out a list of invites saying, do you wish to accept your place? And if you wish to accept, pay now. We'll oversend by 10%, because 10% of people won't accept the place, which I know a lot of people find that really hard to believe, and kind of, why would you even put yourself in the ballot? But when something's free, you don't pay anything to go in the ballot. They just chuck the name into the hat and then decide. You get the invite and go, now's the time you want to pay, and I don't want to. And I think you also, the other thing is, of course, and this is, I think, is a genuine reason, and I understand this. So you two might want to run together, and you put your name in the hat, and then one of you gets in and the other one doesn't, because you wanted to run together. So, well, let's leave it and try again next year. So the person who actually got the place just doesn't accept it, and you'll get partners, friends, husbands, wives, all that kind of stuff, groups wanting to run together. So we over invite a little bit, because we know that a lot of people won't. 10% of people won't take us upon the invite. But we're going to say with the ballot, if we have the ballot open for a week, then the number of people just throwing the name in the hat because they may or may not do it increases, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that more condensed 48 hours.
Yeah, if they want to do it, they'll be in within the 48 hours and put the name in the ballot. If we leave it open for a week or something, then we'll end up get another 3,000 who 30% probably didn't accept the offer if we sent it to, So it's
and we do then offer some charity places afterwards, don't we, Mark?
Yeah, we put some charity places available as well after that, don't we? So we have a certain, and it offers people the opportunity who desperately want to get in. Because I said there'll be people who desperately want to get in, there'll be people who kind of can take it or leave it, and they'll stick the name in the ballot if they don't get a place. They're not that bothered.
Yeah.
The charity places at least gives them the opportunity if they desperately want to get in. And you've only got to raise £100 for charity. So it's not one of these kind of, raise £4,000 or something like that, that you see all the time on social media. It's £100, so it's not a massive amount to raise.
And personal experience, that John and our other mate John both got on in 2022. I didn't.
Yeah.
Bloody algorithms and ballots, but I got a charity place myself, and I was completely, that was a wee bonus thing that I could still take part. So yeah, do keep an eye on the charity places. And but on charity, what was I don't know if you have a totalizer for how much was raised throughout the weekend event and virtual, roughly. But I know that is a huge part of the outcome.
Oh, good question. Well, at the moment, stuff's still coming in. Facebook
Mhm.
and the Just Giving pages aren't closed and stuff like that.
Yep.
But I would guess between 60 and 80,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I see you've already started, donations have already started. It was Paul, the DJ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's people get to nominate a charity, don't they? And a donation goes from the.
So how it works is we've got the donations so far. So we doubled the
Jacob's Ladder, yeah.
So there was the £2,500 that Jacob's Ladder collected. So we doubled that to make that 5. Yeah, Paul Riddell, who's Mr. DJ every year, we gave him a choice, and he went for Sunderland Soup Kitchen today. We'd sent £1,000. We've got £5,000 for Mountain Rescue went out this morning. There'll be £10,000 going out to the Coniston Community Fund, and that funds all sorts of things in Coniston, kids groups. They have coffee mornings for pensioners, whatever it may be. They did some renovations on the theatre there, didn't they? And there's a whole host of things in Coniston. The school might apply for some of that money. So £10,000 goes into a pot for Coniston as well. And then we try to break it down into smaller donations then of like £500. So simple things like, and what we try to do is, as a thank you, is split it amongst the donation choices go to a lot of the people involved in the race. Mm-hmm. So there are 14 checkpoints on the route. So the people who own the checkpoint, they all get £500 to donate wherever they like. So as an example, if you are what I'm thinking of an example from last year, Braithwaite, where Tony and Giselle are. So Braithwaite Village Hall, the people who run the village hall or manage it, they get a choice for £500. And I think they gave it to, I remember for Braithwaite last year, it was the blood bikes. You know, the motorbikers that do all the blood transport. So they chose to give it to blood bikes. Or you give it to Heather over who owns a barn at Wasdale, and she gave it to like maybe the Wasdale show for the kids' prizes or for the fell race or something. Yeah. So the people who own it, they get a choice of where they want £500 to go. So that's £7,000 across the 14 checkpoints. And then the people who run that checkpoint, so Tony and Giselle who run Braithwaite, who manage it, they'll get a choice where they want £500 to go to.
And that might be something like away from.
And it's got to be a community cause, something local to you. So it could, whatever that may be, it could be a food bank, it could be a kids' sports project, whatever it is, kind of certain criteria to match. And so there's another £7,000 then for the checkpoint managers. So, the Spartans, Noni at Ambleside, Kim and Nikki are at Chapel Style, Janet and Lisa are at Tilberthwaite. They get a choice of where they want £500 to go, as well as the people that own that property or own that land. They get a choice of where they want £500 to go as well. So that's £1,000 a checkpoint.
Yep.
Yeah. And I love that. It's not just one donation to charity. A whole host of charities are benefiting from this.
Yeah.
Which is great. Which is the whole idea of spreading the love, isn't it? And that's exactly what you're doing. So brilliant. Can we speak very briefly, or maybe as long as you like, about the presentation ceremony? You could talk about line dancing if you wish.
What's your recollections, Terry? I've got very vague ones.
Well, yeah, I think the line dancing was exceptional, to be quite honest. Yeah.
Yes.
I only saw it from behind.
Yeah.
So, but it looked good from behind.
Terry's got the 7 board.
I had to drag you to run down the aisle as well.
You did.
You did not want to go down.
I went down, and
the next thing you were hand in hand with Mark Willett skipping back up.
Exactly. That's something to remember. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's always it's nice a presentation, isn't it? Because it's just, and it's when everybody's back as well. Or the back, or the forced out on the course, but they're just coming up through the town. You kind of know everyone's back then. Because I think, Terry will agree with me. That the whole event, it's like 48 hours of anxiety, because God forbid, in touch wood, that something should happen. Yep. You've got a lot of people out on the course in on mountain terrain. And something serious could happen to any one of them at any point. So and I really hope we don't ever get to the year where it does, but you've always got that on your mind. So until everyone's back, it's very hard. For me, it's quite surreal trying to sleep and going to sleep, knowing that I'm leaving it in someone else's hands and everybody's out on the mountains somewhere. It's a really hard, it's a big responsibility, and it's constantly nagging on your brain all the time. And the thing is with 100 and the 50 as well, we kind of call it like Montane Lakeland 50 and 100. What's difficult about it is, I find, is that it isn't one event, it's two events which are operating on the same weekend. So we'll get up on Saturday morning and go, right, we might be shattered because we've not slept on Friday night, and the 100's started, and we're already well into the weekend now. So we've been on it since Friday morning, 7 o'clock, and we're now into Saturday morning. And people are turning up for the briefing on Saturday morning who are about to start at 11:30 that day. So they're just appearing. It's like, right, this is the start of our weekend. And we've been on it all evening, yesterday and all evening, all night. So even going into the 50 briefing, I'm very conscious of, come on, game face on now. These people have just arrived. They haven't been here for the last 24 hours. This is the start of the 50 now. Let's up the ante a little bit. Let's, pick it up, even though you're knackered from the night before. And then we go up to Dalemain. So we debrief, and then we get in the cars and get ahead of the coaches, and we dash up to Dalemain. And then all the 50 start. And then when the 50 starts, and then you round the Dalemain estate and manage the road crossing and everything else. And then it gets to about 12:30, 1 o'clock, and it's kind of easing down at Dalemain. And then you realise that since 7 o'clock that morning until 1 o'clock that afternoon on the Saturday, I hadn't thought anything about the 100 runners who are out on the course. There's another event happening that we haven't been monitoring at all. There is someone else monitoring it, but not us. Yeah. But you kind of think, God, I wonder where the 100 runners are. And then you look and they're almost at Coniston. So it's very hard switching between one and the other, and if you have enough staff to do that. But it isn't. People think that from a logistics perspective, it's one event with two distances. It's two separate events completely. Yeah. So you're running two events on the same weekend.
I always miss the first 100 runners coming in because I'm stuck on the road crossing at Dalemain for an hour and a half waiting for 1,300 people to come over the road. And by the time I get back to Coniston, the first three or four have come in already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's why we asked you to step in.
Well, you can relive it over on the event Facebook page.
I've seen. I saw it. Yeah.
It's there forever.
I think we just got back in time for the first one.
Yeah.
I think I was videoing these moments, and I was videoing the celebration, the presentation at the end. And what's the DJ's name?
Paul Riddell.
Paul. Okay, so I'm on Facebook Live. Every time I'm getting that message up to say licensed music is playing, we're taking your video down. It was just popping up on my screen. I'm like, this music is brilliant. I love it. But it's stuffing up this Facebook Live, and which we were trying to do. So I think it's in 4 chunks, and that's why, because licensing issues with but the music's just like uplifting. It's just like and my ears are still ringing actually.
Yeah, I think we had a good selection of country music for the presentation, didn't we? Got the right tunes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the vibe in that tent was electric, absolutely electric, and you, what's that, you're saying that's like 48 hours. I don't know if you do get any sleep, Mark, but you're then switched on. You're the host with the most, and you're rattling off all these stats and figures and whatever. But the volunteers, they created that, what would you call it, a guard of honour, would you call it, from the back of the tent to the front. And that you know what, there wasn't one moment, there was a number of moments. The final finishers coming in was brilliant. The story that you shared of was it Rich, that was the person you invited up on stage to do the sticker gamble thing? That was quite a funny moment there as well. That was quite good. The marriage proposal, God, man, we had it the whole weekend. We had it all, didn't we? It was brilliant.
Yeah.
It was almost like it was scripted. But it wasn't.
But it wasn't, because I seen one of the marshals coming up and giving Mark a piece of paper. That was about the wedding proposal. That had just almost happened. So it was a case of, let's do this. Why not? Boom, come on. It was brilliant, man. Fantastic. Really good.
I mean, I think it's nice with so Richard posted something on Facebook a month earlier, hadn't he, about coming back from alcohol addiction and his story. So you're always watching for those things, and you think, right, there we go, I'll have that one. And I'd messaged Rich a few weeks ago and said, so you need to be at the presentation now. You know, and I'd already spoke to him about that. And if you finish, you need to make sure you're at the presentation. So I'd already clocked those things. But I've said that before I think I've said it a few times about, you know, with the race, is that how do you keep it fresh? How do you keep people wanting to come back? And if you run an event on a set structure and it's the same every year, no matter how good that event is, it is just the same every year. So at some point, will people get bored of it?
Yeah. So
there's if you can change it every year, then it stays fresh, and people are wondering, you know, what's going to be new this year. And there's two things try to do. One is the theme, isn't it? So I think we nailed it with the country and western this year. But then I say that, but then, you know, last year, the whole Make Legends Not War thing with Ukraine, and the year before, the Blues Brothers getting the band back together. Yeah. So we best year ever. We just keep saying that. And I don't think it was the best year ever. I just think I forgot about last year and forgot about the year before that. You know, so
recency bias stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. Those things, you know, that we have. But then the other thing is, of course, the other way to keep it fresh is that the race itself, the people that come every year are different. So if you can find those stories, and I can tell you all the stories from all the previous years of these different people year on year, whether it's go back 5 years at Tony the Unmanned Dibberman at Hard Knot and Rhinos Pass, we found out this guy had been going for like 6-7 years, had been stood at the Unmanned Dibber Point on the Rhinos Pass, helping people to guide them across Blee Moss. And we didn't even know that this guy had been out walking, had seen this event, and had stood there all night helping people, and then decided to come back every year and do the same. But we never even knew about this. They've been doing it for 6 years. And then, you know, Tony the Unmanned Dibberman. And then you've got like the stories from, you know, Mike, who had cancer last year, and you've got, or Carl rather, keep calling him, it's Carl Michael, isn't it? But probably Mike. And then, you know, Rich from this year. And there's stories every year. We've had a couple of marriage proposals, all that kind of thing. And the stories will change every year. So if you can, rather than putting the attention onto the race and going, oh, look at the race is good and it's great and we do all of this, you can use the race, because the race is quite a powerful thing now, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's got a big following, so you can turn the spotlight and use the race to go, look at him, look at them, look at her. And then there's these amazing stories which will go on, you know, every year, because you can use the race to highlight, look at what that guy is doing that's amazing, look at what that lady is doing there, which is unbelievable. And I think that's what to try to do each year, is not turn the spotlight inwards and go, look at the race, it's really good. It's use the spotlight of the race to point it at other people and say, look at that story, you know, that's amazing. And then if we can keep it rolling over, you know, why don't you do the 100 next year rather than the 50, Rich? So that's one story boxed off already for 2024.
Just have to remember it.
I'll let in some secret information as well, and I don't think I'm treading on any toes with this as well. So I messaged Rich, because he said he'd got a couple of other recovering addicts into trail running, and they had a bit of a running club. Him and his wife were organising a bit of a running group on a Saturday morning. So I messaged him on the Monday and said, oh, well done, mate, you know, brilliant, you know, well done on everything. Tell me more about this running group that you organise. So he's got a bit of they're getting a bit of running group, getting other recovering addicts into trail running as a way of helping them. So I said, you know, could some of them do the 50 next year? Could you train them for the 50? So that's a whole nother thing that potentially we're going to help with, is put some funding into that group that he's organising in Wales, and then offer a series of free entries into the Lakeland 50. So he might not be coming back on his own next year. There might be a whole group of them coming.
Brilliant.
But that's it. That's how it's, you know, it just takes one person like him to start it, and then it's a snowball effect, isn't it?
Don't let Netflix hear that story. They'll be well on to it, won't they just? That's
so hopefully he's
fantastic.
coming back on his own next year, be coming back with a whole group of them.
Oh man, we'll keep an eye on that. What you said around about that, I was almost hearing it, Mark, like sort of Groundhog Day syndrome of, you know, just like play it again, Sam. If you did the same thing every year, then you wouldn't attract as many people back, and you wouldn't attract as many new people, because that word of mouth is the powerful thing. It's the community that you create and the family that you speak about that, you know, John and I absolutely feel part of, and have done since we, you know, first headed down. And it's quite hard to express the, you know, how powerful and sort of that emotive connection between runners, volunteers, race organisers that you've created is fantastic. Don't know about you, John.
Yeah, on the Sunday, as we were packing up in the morning, I heard people talking about, they weren't even giving it that 48-hour thing. They were saying, I'm coming back next year. But what if we didn't get a place? I'm still coming back. I'll volunteer, but I'll be here next year. People just love it. And I totally understand why. It's just it's a special thing. It's a special place, but it's not about the place. It's about the thing, and the thing is the people that's involved there. It's just absolutely wonderful. So, I'm still on a buzz from last weekend, you know, and I hope it lasts for a very long time.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Well, that has been a fantastic little retrospective, not just about last weekend, but actually just some of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, and, you know, that Terry and Marc, head up, but they're aided and abetted by a cast of hundreds, really.
Oh, yeah.
An army, that's a good way to put it. Or I don't know what you call a group of cowboys.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a collective.
Easy now. Easy
Yeah.
now.
Okay.
Yeah.
A posse.
Boys.
A rhinestone of cowboys.
A Wrangler.
Oh, yeah, that Wrangler shirt did serve you well.
My 7-year-old daughter, my 7-year-old daughter's partially deaf, and she can't pronounce certain words, so she kept shouting at me, "Wanger!" And I had to just.
I love it. Yeah. And we know fine well that everybody will be waiting with bated breath on the theming for next year. When is it that the theming usually gets sort of drip fed out? Is it the start of the year?
I'm gutted, because like the country and western thing, I didn't even have to buy any fancy dress clothes. I just opened the wardrobe and I was ready. You know what I mean? My girls listen. Someone said, "Oh, your girls are amazing. They sang all the words to all those country and western songs at the prepresentation. They were up in the VIP area." That's what we listen. That's our playlist in the car. So it wasn't really a theme.
I can't wait.
I might leave this one to Terry for next year.
Oh, I think not. Does this mean I can hang my hat up now?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
very good. Very good.
It usually comes at some point. We're sat in the office and have a silly idea, and then we go, let's just go with that. You know. Yeah. And I think I'm going to say about the going back to the thing about the volunteers as well. It is a very it's sometimes quite an odd thing when you sat there organising it all, and it feels like a bit like a house of cards, because you just think, so any 1 minute, you know, I don't know, if you upset people and they don't want to, you can't use that checkpoint anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like wherever it's Kentmere or Marden, if you can't use those locations, the whole thing just comes down, you know. And it's the same with the volunteers. If you look at what's creating the atmosphere, so you're watching them, cheering them in, you see the crowds outside on the finish line and stuff like that. And it's all right to kind of think you're there orchestrating it, but you're not, to be honest. The volunteers, to a large extent, have taken the event over, and they know what they're doing, and they just bring that enthusiasm and they run it every year. So when you kind of say, oh, you know, without the volunteers, we wouldn't be able to do this. The volunteers and the passion they put into it, and the fact that they've just completely embraced it and adopted it as theirs, you know, that's I find that would be really, really hard for other people to mimic, you know. And you feel like a bit of a fraud sometimes when you kind of, everybody's doing this and you think, why do you even, you know, they'll come every single year and put this effort in, and you feel like a bit of a fraud sat there sometimes, you know. But it's I think that it's almost become owned by the community. Do you know if that makes sense?
Yeah, it does.
Because if they just decided don't really want to support it anymore, that's it. It's over, gone. You know, so it's I feel like it's almost like part owned, isn't it? Really now.
But what you've got is the opposite of that. You've got people who want in to support it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're desperate to be in there, and I take it that you mentioned earlier on about the sort of checkpoints in the stores. There's families involved. You know, this is what we do this weekend. You know, Whole families are involved. We've been trying for a long time, Stephen, to get these two on Access All Areas, haven't we? And we thought it was only fair to wait until we do it post-event. It was only meant to be a half-hour chat. What are we now? About an hour, 15 or something.
Something like that. Time passes strange in Coniston Ranch.
To Phil, Jess and Thea as well. So, you're talking about families coming up. Mm-hmm. So Phil, Jess, Thea Gray, who come up every year. And their daughter Thea's 16 now, I think she is. And she was, how many years they've been coming up for. And Phil manages registration. Normally Jess is running it, isn't she?
Yeah.
But she was helping this year. They all come up and help. And every single year, and it's always their wedding anniversary weekend. I'm pretty sure it's always their wedding anniversary weekend, and they come up every year. And Thea always looks after, then ends up babysitting my kids as well. Yeah, it's just brilliant. Yeah, and that's a classic example of it, really. That's a classic example, and I'm sorry, I watch it up now. I think it's good to have the kids there because you would appreciate this. Anybody who brings the family. Where else could you find better role models than bringing the kids to a weekend like that? To see that and see the parents or the friends or family, whoever they are, completing events like that. Where else could you find better role models for kids than that weekend? So
increase again next year to get more than 400 medals ordered for that.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
That's been absolutely fantastic to speak to you about, both our own experience and what it was like from your perspective last weekend. I know that John and I had an absolute hoot, and we are super appreciative of being asked along. And it was an honour, to be honest. John, I don't know if you've got any other closing remarks.
I would just echo that. Thank you very much for inviting us along. We weren't quite sure what was going to be happening. We had a rough idea what was going to be happening when we came down, but it was way more than I expected. To get that feeling and to see it from behind the scenes. And I suppose the title of this is Access All Areas. That's what you gave to us, was Access All Areas. We were able to get there. I think at one point I was even up on the stage behind you as well, taking photos, Terry and Marc, of people coming up that line, which was brilliant. I've not published them anywhere yet. I must think about doing that sometime soon. But no, I think it's just a massive, massive thank you, especially for not making us run. That was the main thing.
Yeah. And I just want to finish up saying, we met loads of people who have listened to the podcast, the Young Hearts Run Free podcast, and loads of new people as well, made loads of new pals, and that's what kind of makes John and I's lights shine brighter. So thanks for that opportunity too. It was absolutely awesome.